Thank you. Welcome to the Economic Development and Equity Subcommittee presentation. Today is May 25th, 2022. Item number 1 is approval of the minutes. Do I have somebody that can make a motion for approval of minutes?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have an approval and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion passes. Thank you. We are on item 2, development agreement with IDM. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve?
I move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Or just agree. Yay, yes. Motion carries. We are on item number 3. It's for information only. Key Economic Indicators Quarterly Report. Does anybody need anything? Want to hear it? I don't hear anything. So I'm moving to item 4, IGA and Master Plan Lease with ASU.
Vice Mayor Pastor and subcommittee members, here at the table we have our Economic Development Director, Christine Mackey, and Deputy CED Director, Zandon Keating.
Chris? Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, we are here today to talk to you about staff's recommendations for a potential revision to the existing intergovernmental agreement and master lease between the city and Arizona State University. Just kind of by way of background, in 2005-2006, the staff and city council and Arizona State University at that time created a master plan that would bring ASU into downtown Phoenix. And it's very prescriptive on how city-owned properties and ASU-owned properties are dealt with in the IGA. Today, we're going to walk you through those changes that staff would recommend and the properties. As Deputy City Manager Spencer said, with me today is Zandon Keating, Deputy Director over Community and Economic Development, and Zandon's going to walk you through staff's proposed terms.
Thank you, Chris. So real quick background, as Chris noted, the IGA, which really created the structure for the downtown campus, was entered into in 2005, and then that master lease was entered into in 2006. The master lease covers really the downtown campus, all of those ASU buildings that we know. The significant buildings are listed here on the screen. There's a couple other incidental properties as well that are kind of discussed within the master lease as well. Ultimately, what that's brought us to today is the 18,000 students on the campus, which is pretty amazing if you think about it, how quickly that has grown. There's a few properties, though, as Chris noted, that as the campus has developed, they are really just situated in a different place today, and we know more about what we want to do with them and what ASU's kind of uses are for the property, and so it's time to really look at what makes sense and what changes do we need to make. The first of those properties is the Mercado property. A lot of things have changed over time. ASU has continued to activate that property. They have a number of programs that exist within the property, but it's important to note that the Mercado property is actually within the biomedical campus. It's within the boundaries, and ASU now has a stake within the campus. They're a partner with the city and with our other partners in the continued growth of the campus. We know what the ultimate use will be for that property because it's part of the biomedical campus. We know it's going to be a contributing property to the ultimate success of the campus. Important to note that it is ASU owned. It's not a city owned property, but it was designated within the IGA that ownership would transfer to the city in 2014. The next property that we'd like to talk about are the McKinley lots, located basically at the southeast corner of McKinley and First Street. They are a set of parking lots that have been used to support ASU activities to the south, and ASU has rights to use it for parking to support their campus. We think it's time for it's a clean site, and it's time for City Council to be able to determine what the future use is for that site. And we think that there are more efficient ways to park ASU's parking, demand in the future. There are other places that we can move them if need be throughout the area. This is a city-owned property. Again, it's noted within the master lease that gives ASU those rights, but city-owned, clean site. It's a perfect site for City Council to ultimately decide what happens here next. And then the final site is the Valley Youth Theater. So in 2005, the Office of Arts and Culture entered into an operating agreement with the Valley Youth Theater to allow a 25-year term for the theater to operate in that site. That expires on January 5th of 2030. Shortly afterwards, in 2006, the master lease gave ASU some development rights on the site and dictated that ASU needed to begin their development planning activities by August 1st of 2020. That did happen. They started that process. Through that process, they determined that they're not ready yet to develop the site. They need some more time before they're really going to be at that place. We know the expectation is that it will be a contributing piece to the campus. But the campus needs a little bit more time to grow. There's been a number of buildings that have opened recently, and they need to grow into those spaces before this particular piece is ready. City-owned, again, something that's just continued to be maintained under the master leases with rights both to Valley Youth Theater as well as to ASU ultimately in the future. So the proposed business terms would be to remove the requirement from the IGA for ASU to transfer a Mercado property to the city. That would allow ASU to continue to invest in that property, continue to program it, and have it be a contributing property to the biomedical core. Our next step would be to remove the McKinley lots from the lease, and that would allow City Council to ultimately move forward with determining what the future is with that site. And then the final one would be to extend ASU's deadline for the initial development period on the Valley Youth Theater lots to January 5th of 2030, which coincides with the Valley Youth Theater's current operating termination dates, and allow them to continue to perform there and do their activities uninterrupted for the period of their lease. And I'll turn it back over to Chris to close up.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, when staff looks back at the agreements that were created in 2005-2006 between ASU and the City of Phoenix, the documents really make sense. They really provide for this prescriptive development of the downtown ASU campus. But where it got a little fuzzy for us is in the IGA, we have this McKinley lot that the city owns free and clear that the council could now consider for different development other than ASU development to cause Phoenix's own conveniences of commerce. And ASU owns the Mercado campus that would transfer to the city and vice versa. It's almost like we would swap land sites. ASU's made significant investments into the Mercado campus. They continue to use it today as an education campus. So staff really did feel it was in the city's best interest to control the future of the McKinley lot and let ASU control the future of the Mercado lot. So with that, we do request the Economic Development and Equity Subcommittee recommend to the City Council authorization to enter into the amendments to the previous documents. And Madam Chair, with that, we're happy to take any questions you might have.
Does anybody have any questions? Because I have some, but Councilwoman Ansari.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I'm fully on board with this. Only question I have is really around how we start getting the ball rolling on putting out potentially an RFP for the McKinley lots. Chris, you and I have talked about this. I think there's no question in anyone's mind that affordable housing is of huge need, especially in the downtown core. So I'm wondering what you need from us to start getting the ball rolling on that.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Ansari, what I would recommend is that we work over the summer to come forward in the fall with for council's recommendation to move forward with a request for proposal on those McKinley lots. We do have another parcel in that specific area that we could package together should council so direct us and come forward for that guidance and get an RFP issued in the fall, and agree with you. It could be a wonderful opportunity for council to make that determination for its own property.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Chris, why would we do an RFP and not do a lease? Are you talking about an RFP for a lease of the land?
Madam Chair, excellent question. As council has considered over the past year remaining ownership of its land, as we saw done with Central Station and we've done with other properties, I think that is something staff could recommend moving forward with and bring that to council so that it is a long-term land lease, should that be council's direction to us, and that would be an opportunity so someone else develops it and we remain in as the land partner. And I think you've provided really thoughtful guidance to staff on that front over the years. I like to quote you, we're not making any more land, and the city needs to have land in the future to be able to make determinations. So that would be something we absolutely could bring forward.
Okay. My other question is, basically what we're doing is, it says remove McKinley lots from the campus district in a master lease. What does that mean?
Madam Chair, what that means is today, in the governing documents that were created in 2005 and 2006, the council at that time made the determination to include those in these governing documents, in these master lease documents. So in other words, this is not an item that has to come back to City Council. It's already prescriptive as to the way the property gets used. What staff would recommend is we separate those McKinley lots out of that master lease, meaning ASU would no longer have any rights to that property, and the City Council could choose through a mechanism of City Council's choosing as to how they would cause the development to come forward in some means that Council would decide. Councilman Ansari mentioned affordable housing. Is it ground floor retail? Is it Council would make the decision, and ASU would no longer have any rights to that property other than temporary parking until it was ready to be used.
Okay, so then it's what it's doing is removing it from a document, a lease that we have that is saying ASU has to do something with this property or is in this master plan that ASU has the ability to do something. We're removing it out of the lease or master lease, and then we are going then to decide what we're going to do with that property.
Madam Chair, you're exactly correct.
Okay. And why the Mercado? Why there was a purpose and reason why the Mercado property was in an IGA for ASU to transfer it to Phoenix. There's methodical people in the past were very methodical about these properties. So why are we asking now to release ASU from transferring that property?
Madam Chair, as staff looked at it, you could see a very methodical reason, a very prescriptive reason in the existing IGAs, in the existing lease documents that really showed how those properties would be used. What was interesting about this one, all the other properties were owned by the City of Phoenix, and they were brought into this master agreement by the City of Phoenix to ASU. This property was independently owned by Arizona State University, and they were operating on that property at that time. As we look forward, staff feels and would recommend to council for your consideration that it's best to let ASU continue to grow on that property in the means by which it was always envisioned as part of the healthcare and biosciences and other educational purposes, and instead removing out the McKinley lot that council could move forward with. So really, really smart people, very methodical, as you mentioned, came up with these plans back in the day, and my hat is off to them. I stand in awe of how they created this. It just, as we fast forward to today, I think it makes more sense for ASU to continue to grow on the property that they own today, and the city to build on its own property for a different purpose other than educational uses. Because as it exists today, although Mercado in 2024 would come into city use, ASU still has the rights to develop it and still has the rights to continue to move forward, and they would have rights to our McKinley lot. This allows them to have the rights to develop on their own property they own today, and council to make a different decision. Council today, with information that's now 17 years later, to make a different decision for McKinley.
Now you led me down to a rabbit hole, because I would think the Mercado property is probably worth a lot more because there's more square footage than the McKinley property.
So, Madam Chair, as we look at as a flat land,
Because I'm trying to figure out, I guess what I should say, I'm trying to figure out, because who crafted this, there's definitely reasoning. So if the city of Phoenix gave 4 large properties, 5 large properties, and ASU had to at least give something, the something was the Mercado. And so I'm trying to figure out, I'm just trying to figure out the dynamics of this.
Of course.
Discussion.
So as you look at that, and you're not wrong, the Mercado is bigger than the McKinley lot is. The McKinley lot is clean today and unencumbered by any other than the current IGA and lease. This action today would remove that out of any encumbrances for city council to allow high-rise residential or to allow affordable housing or to allow those things to happen today. When you look at the Mercado, while the land itself is larger than the McKinley lot, you have the buildings that are on the property that probably aren't the most efficient for a downtown use in the future and would most likely in the future be demolished and rebuilt by our university partners to create additional development on the property. But they have those restrictions that the city couldn't transfer it to any other user. We couldn't use it for any other purpose. It's part of the biomedical campus, so it's healthcare, educational related uses. We couldn't use it for affordable housing. So you're not wrong in the fact that one is larger than the other and the other is a smaller property. You are absolutely right there. It is, as we fast forward to today, for the needs of the city today and the needs of ASU and our educational partners today, having that clean break where McKinley can be used for something else, because in absence of this, the IGA allows ASU to develop McKinley and allows ASU to future develop Mercado. It's just under the city's ownership, but ASU keeps operating and keeps their leases on the property. This allowed this to put the one property back where city council could take it for an alternative use, not educational uses.
Okay, I now understand what's happening. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve. Item 4.
There's a motion from, I believe, Councilwoman Ansari, and then a second by Councilwoman O'Brien.
Correct.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Item number, I lost all my paperwork. Next item.
Vice Mayor and subcommittee members, our next item is item number 5, which is a Downtown Phoenix Economic Development Tools update. We have Chris Mackey, who will remain at the table, our Economic Development Director, as well as Zandon Keating. And then joining them is Lauren Amar from our Government Relations Office, as well as Attorney Thomas Stack. With that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, I'll say good morning again to you. You will recall at your March subcommittee meeting, several of the subcommittee members did ask the staff to come back with an overview of some of the redevelopment tools that we use here in downtown Phoenix. It was from a separate list that was part of another presentation, and are coming forward today to talk to you about some of those redevelopment tools. So as you do know, we have very limited redevelopment tools in the state of Arizona, and we work under the City Council's guidance and direction on a strategic planning process to utilize these tools in our best method possible to cause the greatest redevelopment for Phoenix. We have 6 tools that we will talk to you about between this meeting and your June committee meeting in the interest of time. The first you know well, it is Government Property Lease Excise Tax, or GPLET. The second is the Strategic Economic Development Fund, which the council created in 2015, that allows for job training and job creation and infrastructure investments. The next is Historic and Heritage Preservation. Council has used that tool incredibly well. That's seen the Van Buren, that's seen the State 48, that's seen the redevelopment of the Pemberton, that's seen the redevelopment of any number of projects. Infrastructure investments, which I would say the council uses incredibly as a tool to cause redevelopment to happen through reinvestment in development agreements and our own investments. And then the theme park legislation that was approved by the Arizona State Legislature, and then an entertainment district, of which we'll walk you through today. Today, we are going to talk to you about 2 of those tools. The next 4 will be at your June meeting as we move forward. So the first we will talk about is the theme park district. And as Deputy City Manager Spencer said, with me today is Lorna Moore, who is the Government Relations Manager, and will talk us through what that legislation is and how it was revisioned in the last legislative session. Lauren?
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, members of the subcommittee. As Chris said, I'm Lauren Armour, and I'll walk you through the theme park district legislation that was passed in the 2021 legislative session. So just an overview of the definition of theme park in this legislation. In this context, it means any combination of recreational entertainment, sports, which was added in this legislation as a change from prior iterations, amusement and cultural venues and parking facilities with a central access designed and built around a particular time, place, story, or subject, including consistent presentation of architecture, costuming, merchandise, food, games, rides, and attractions, sort of the conventional idea of a theme park with now sports added in as a new spin on that. It included any buildings and improvements used for overnight lodging and accommodation, so that this is new, again, with this version of the legislation, adding in hotels. So this legislation was passed during the 2021 legislative session, and it extended original legislation from 2005, under which Phoenix partnered with the City of Williams to create a district. That district expired last year, prompting the need for new legislation. This bill authorized the formation of new districts with the ability to issue up to $2 billion in bonds. Those bonds are funded by an additional transaction privilege tax of up to 9% on the sales and income within the district, and 20% of the bond principal is funded by private partners. The legislation, as I mentioned, expanded the definition of the theme park to include sports facilities. A theme park district would have to be formed by agreement between the Phoenix City Council and Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. The district would be a municipal corporation and considered a tax-levying public improvement district. The geographical boundaries of the district must be contiguous to make up the theme park site. The governing board of the theme park district is laid out in the law. Its membership would include 1 member from each of the following for a 4-year term. The first is a member of the Phoenix City Council elected by the Phoenix City Council. There would be a member of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors elected by the Board of Supervisors, a member of the general public from Apache, Coconino, Mojave, Navajo, or Yavapai counties, who would be appointed by the Speaker of the House, and a member of the general public from Maricopa County, appointed by the Senate President. The governing board is permitted to levy a new transaction privilege tax of up to 9% within the district to pay off the bonds. and provides for the construction, renovation, redevelopment, and lease of the properties and interests owned or controlled by the district. The board is required to enter into leases in the interest of the district or to carry out and accomplish statutory requirements. With that, I'll take a moment and see if there are any questions from the members of the subcommittee.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead. Oh, are you asking me or are you asking me if there's questions?
I have a question. Thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Stark.
Okay, thank you. So this is specific to Maricopa County, correct?
It is, yes. It would have to be a partnership between the city and Maricopa County.
But it doesn't apply anywhere else in the state of Arizona?
No.
So it's for the Diamondbacks, which is fine. But as far as the other counties, were they put in just to have a say in what we do in Maricopa County? I'm trying to understand why all the other counties were included.
Yeah, Councilwoman Stark, a member of the public from other counties was included. I couldn't say exactly why it was left in there, but it was the same language as the prior iteration of the legislation from 2005 that was in a more rural area. And so also generally, I know at the legislature there tends to be a theme of wanting rural input even in more developed areas. So.
Yeah, I was on the governing board, and they had that same legislation. I just wondered what happened. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Can I ask for some clarity? Could Councilwoman Stark, you mentioned that this was for the Diamondbacks. I think it's page 7 or page 8. Is that why then sports was included into this language?
So in terms of the legislative intent, excuse me, Councilwoman Pastor, I couldn't say exactly why it was included, but I do know that there has been discussion since then about utilizing this for the Diamondbacks facility.
Yes, Vice Mayor, when I was on the theme park district, we did talk about the Diamondbacks, and we were working under a sunset clause, and we just didn't have the time to make it happen, and I think that's why they went back in and updated the legislation, because clearly in the last year and a half that I was on the governing board, we concentrated on trying to help the Diamondbacks.
Vice Mayor, you are correct. On the bottom of page 6 on the slides, it does mention that this new legislation expands the definition of theme park to include sports facilities. So it's page 6 of the slides.
Okay. Is this the last of the theme park slide?
Madam Chair, yes. We next would move into the entertainment district.
Okay, so my question about the theme park slide, now that I'm getting some history, is that then this theme park district can it only apply to the Diamondbacks?
Madam Chair, no, it's open-ended in the way that the legislation is written.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, we'll next move into an overview of entertainment district, how the city's used them in the past, those that exist, and a thorough overview of the entertainment district. Why, of course, the committee asked for this one to come forward. As we look at the continued revitalization of downtown Phoenix, we've got so many great assets, we've got so many great connections, but as I like to say, we've got the entire six-pack, we're just missing the little plastic thingy that pulls it all together. And I think the entertainment district language we would talk to you about today would be that little plastic thingy that pulls everything and connects everything together. I'll turn it over to Zandon Keating, Deputy Director of Community and Economic Development, to walk us through staff's thoughts on entertainment district. Zandon?
Thank you, Chris, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. So first, we wanted to talk a little bit about what we mean when we say entertainment district in the context of today's discussion, because there's a lot of definitions out there. So on the screen you see a definition. Really it's that place that has entertainment. It's stuff to go to. It's bars and restaurants, cultural facilities, theaters, sporting facilities, all of those sorts of places. I'm going to quote Chris Mackey here. It's that place you go when you don't know what's going on, but you know it's going to be fun. So it's entertainment, and in the broadest sense of things. There's been several different sort of efforts that the City Council has been involved with, and the City of Phoenix has been involved with. So we'll go through those real quickly. The first is the Jackson Street Entertainment District PUD, which was approved by City Council in 2009. This was an area, it's really south of the Talking Stick Arena and just southwest of Chase Field. It was intended to be that entertainment district. They were attempting to redevelop the area and the existing buildings that were there into that place where there would be a lot of cultural amenities. Unfortunately, 2009 was not a great time to embark on an effort like this, and so not much happened for many years after that. We are very happy to say there are 2 developments underway currently. Not necessarily entertainment district type developments, but there is investment going on in the area with the Home to Suites hotel that is under construction at 2nd Street in Jackson, as well as the Battery Lofts, which are a little bit to the south, sort of straddling Buchanan between 3rd and 4th Streets. The next effort is what's called the Legends Entertainment District, which was approved by City Council in 2011. That really is a signage and street activation agreement. It brings all of that activity that you see with all the big signs to the area, brings a lot of energy and a lot of visual interest for folks in the area. Does not, of course, bring any sort of venues or those sorts of things, although Legends has been involved in a few other activations of sorts, and block parties and that sort of thing, and concerts. So there's some work from that regard, but not as far as the permanent structures, other than that great signage that you see in the area. The final is in 2016, City Council actually designated what is called the Downtown Phoenix Entertainment District. This is a tool that is allowed through the Arizona revised statutes that basically allows an exemption for certain types of liquor licenses from their distances from schools and churches. As you know, we have those distances, required distances in the state law for very good reason, but in an urban environment, it can be sometimes very, very difficult to meet those distance requirements and still create the urban environment that we're trying to establish here in downtown Phoenix. And so state law created the ability for municipalities to create an entertainment district that allows for that exemption. That exemption still goes through a full public hearing process. So there is still public input on whether or not that particular use is an appropriate one, especially considering the exemption, but it does allow for that particular option. So what could an entertainment district look like? We looked at a few cities across the country just to give you some ideas of what we're talking about when we say an entertainment district, and what does that look like. These are probably areas that many of you are very familiar with. The first, Arizona's favorite summer destination, San Diego, the Gaslamp quarter. Excuse me, we like to call it the Gaslamp District. We looked this up. It is actually a Gaslamp quarter. As you can see, it's really just north of their convention center, just west of Petco Park, which is their baseball stadium. And that area has lots and lots of options for entertainment for anybody who's coming to visit the city or people coming from other places. I know when we go to San Diego, a lot of times we'll just go down to the Gaslamp quarter because we know it's going to be fun. We don't know what's going to be happening down there, but we know we're going to have a good time. The next would be 6th Street in Austin. This an area also very close to their convention center in downtown Austin. It's their center of their nightlife there in downtown Austin. Lots and lots of food and beverage, as well as music venues and that sort of thing. And then the final one we looked at was Honky Tonk Highway in Nashville, which is just north of Bridgestone Arena, which is where their hockey team plays, and also just north of Music City Center, which is where is their convention center there in Nashville. This is, as I'm sure everybody knows, this is really the center of country music in the United States, and they were fortunate to position these things right very close to some of their major assets in downtown Nashville. With that, I will pass it back over to Chris to close out.
And Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, as you'll remember, in 2020, prior to the pandemic, our Phoenix Convention Center had a convention sports and leisure study that had been completed, which, as you know, they are working to update right now, and they'll be bringing back forward to this committee in the future. But one of the things that came out of that 2020 study of all of the destination marketing organizations across the country who do large conventions is the fact that we don't have a lot of vibrant nightlife right outside our convention center door. That attraction, that true destination of what those conventioneers are looking for. But not only our conventioneers, as Zandon mentioned, our citizens, the employees that are in downtown Phoenix, and quite frankly, even our city employees, of that true nightlife thing to do where you walk out of the area and lots going on, as in Honky Tonk Highway and 6th Street in Austin and the Gaslamp Quarter. So, Madam Chair, as we continue to move forward, as we look at the two tools to discuss with you today are completed in the theme park district and the entertainment district, and we'll discuss the next four with your permission at your June meeting. And Madam Chair, we're happy to take any questions or discussion that you might have.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? I have one question, Chris. I understand the entertainment district. Does the entertainment district have a tax?
Madam Chair, no. As an entertainment district goes forward, they're typically a marketing tool where it's branding, where it's common signage, it's common landscape, it's connectivity and sidewalks and things like that. Most entertainment districts don't have a tax, but the hotels that are in the entertainment district do tend to pay an enhanced tax. As you know, in downtown Phoenix, we already have an enhanced municipal services district that covers this area, and should this be a guidance from this committee and from the council to move forward, we would work closely with Downtown Phoenix, Inc. to wrap that in with our projects that we work on with them, as well as our Visit Phoenix partners.
Okay, so hotels then have an extra fee. That's what I'm hearing, or an extra tax.
Madam Chair, no, the hotels in other areas tend to put on a visitor tax that then goes into that area, but no, it is not prescriptive and it would not be required. Our hotels today have an additional a tax through Proposition 301 that was approved through the state legislature back in the early 2000s, by which they pay an additional citizens that are staying there, not citizens, but people who are staying in the hotel pay an additional tax that goes into marketing for our tourism and for our convention centers and that type of thing. But no, our hotels would not pay any additional tax in an entertainment district. There's one that exists today.
Okay, so then the entertainment district would just be designed as a district. It would be identified as a district, as that's the area where we will concentrate to build elements of an entertainment district. Am I getting this correct?
Madam Chair, you're exactly correct, yes.
Okay, the theme park legislation, does that have a tax?
Madam Chair, I'll answer, and then I'll look to Lauren and Tom Stack, our attorney, if I answer it incorrectly. So when the theme park district is created, the board of the theme park district does have the ability to sell up to $2 billion in bonds to build whatever entity it is that creates within the theme park district. So whether it is a big water park, whether it is a a Disney Phoenix, whether it is a new sports facility, whatever it is, they have that ability to sell bonds up to $2 billion. They also have the ability to impose an additional tax of up to 9% within that district only that then would satisfy those bonds.
Okay, so within that district, there could be an additional tax up to 9%. Is that what I heard?
Madam Chair, correct.
I know it's in my paperwork. And then we can sell up to 2 million in bonds.
Madam Chair, up to $2 billion in bonds, you're correct.
Billion. Okay. All right. And then in the theme park legislation, is that considered a boundary too?
Madam Chair, correct. The council would, at a formal meeting, if it choose to move forward, would set a physical boundary that would be the theme park district.
And then could the entertainment district then be overlaid into the theme park district?
Madam Chair, it absolutely could.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you. Councilwoman Ansari, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that I understand correctly. So, Chris, in 2016, we designated an entertainment district, but your recommendation is that we need to extend the boundaries. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Councilman Ansari, in 2016, we created a boundary of an entertainment district, and that entertainment district is different than the one we're necessarily talking to you about today. The reason for it was different. So when we bring a liquor license forward to you for your recommendation to the Arizona State Liquor Board, in legislation, it tells us that you cannot be within, a liquor license cannot even be considered by the Phoenix City Council or the Arizona Liquor Board if you are within 300 feet of a church or a school. So that's across the state of Arizona, that is the way that it's set up. In 2016, 2015 and 16, legislation was run at the state level to say that each city could identify one entertainment district and it's a physical boundaried entertainment district, not a marketing district. It's a physical boundary to say, because that's an urban environment. So if you're downtown Phoenix, downtown Gilbert, downtown Glendale, where you're a really tight environment, the city council and the Arizona Liquor Board could choose to not have to stay within that 300-foot restriction. We were approached by Roosevelt Row as the reason that we did it in downtown Phoenix. So we were approached by Roosevelt Row to say, we have a number of churches right along Roosevelt Row, and our jazz clubs like the Nash, and our microbreweries, and our other venues that are predominantly liquor as opposed to food are not outside of 300 feet of these churches. And so the staff understood and heard them and brought forward that recommendation to the city council, and that was approved, and that has satisfied that state requirement. What I would say, Madam Chair and Councilman Ansari, is I think what staff would like to do is go back and look at those boundaries and say, because you'd hate to have 3 or 4 or 5 entertainment districts in downtown Phoenix. Could we go back and look at those boundaries and perhaps have the two even interconnect and overlap with each other?
Okay, got it. And then when you talk about the branding and kind of, creating, the way the Gaslamp quarter is in San Diego, what sort of a process or a timeline do you see for something like that? And have we done any sort of preliminary work to begin that, that exploratory work of what would Phoenix's version look like?
Madam Chair, Councilman Ansari, staff would suggest that it is part of a larger overall effort for downtown to really look at downtown Phoenix and look at what as we look at the plans for downtown Phoenix, what are those things that we're missing? What are those things that this council would like to see? What are those things that the community and stakeholders would like to see as the next 10 or 20 years of downtown Phoenix? And we would think that process of the entertainment district would happen under that guise and maybe running in parallel to each other. But to date, we've had great discussions about how we leverage ASU and U of A and NAU's brands and our community college with the IT Institute and with LabForce on the bio campus. We've got Roosevelt Row, we've got our sports venues, we've got the warehouse district, and it starts to kind of feel like where they all kind of coalesce is really along 3rd Street and along 2nd Street, and creates kind of that linear connection from the warehouse district all the way up to as we start to approach Hance Park. So as staff has kind of thought it through, it seems like it almost feels like it should be much like Gaslamp Quarter, much like the Honky Tonk Highway, this linear connection that really pulls people along to discover these really exciting nodes that move through downtown.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. Very, very supportive of this effort overall. And I think, from whether it's from constituents or especially those in the downtown community involved in like the music scene, one thing I've heard a lot about is, an open music amphitheater, for example, is something that could be an attractive piece and that exists in many different downtowns. And I know we've also talked about how do we bring Grand Avenue into this? And maybe if it's not even part of the entertainment district core, whatever those boundaries end up being, how do we bring in those extensions of downtown that are very attractive and appealing that, remind us of a 6th Street in Austin? So very excited, and I think certainly overdue. I know the pandemic kind of got in our way, but overdue to have this discussion. Thank you.
Chris, I just wanted to vocalize to the community and to the committee is that's the purpose of right now why we're doing the tools, and then the next month we're doing the tools, and then coming back in September to discuss what that entertainment district and what we need to do to give directives to start that dialogue with the community. We have pieces of it and elements of it, but now really go out into the community and have that discussion. I probably should have laid that out. Strategic plan, at least in my mind, or with Chris and Convention Center and everybody else on how we're going to go and lead that discussion and move fast. I think of it more fast and furious than taking a very deliberative time, because we have enough information now.
Thank you for that overview, Madam Chair.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, well, we will see you in June. Are there any, I don't think I have any call to the public. I think I skipped that.
Madam Chair, there are no calls to the public today.
And then any future items?
Madam Chair, what we have listed is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion update for the month of June, Downtown Phoenix Economic Tools Part 2 for the month of June, and then Convention, Sports, and Leisure Market Study for the month of September, unless any of the other subcommittee members have any requests.
Everybody else? All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.